Welcome to another Skill-Capped and LoL Esports collaboration. Viego is definitely one of the most exciting junglers to watch in League, and with the World's 2024 Viego skin coming out, we wanted to celebrate by taking a step back and looking at some of the most impressive and iconic Viego moments in League's competitive history. We're going to be taking a look at 3 different Viego pop-offs, each with unique lessons for mastering the champion. Each play will focus in a specific skill set that allowed the Viego to take over and will be breaking things down every step of the way. So whether you want to learn how to play Viego a bit more or simply want to appreciate some amazing plays, let's get started. And without a doubt, the very first thing anyone thinks of when it comes to mastering Viego isn't about the champion itself. It's all about having that mountain of knowledge of how to play every other champion in the game. While most Viego players can get away with button mashing Q, W, E, and then resetting back to their base form with R, that obviously doesn't fly in pro play, especially at the highest levels. Having just that little bit of extra champion knowledge can go a long way in turning fights around. And there's no better example of this than from T1's Oner, playing against G2 at the Season 12 MSI.
Now he's trying to protect his mid laner, but the last breath comes in. The ultimate's there from Zeus as well. No one's died just yet. Faker is going to be able to take down Targamas, but then immediately 3 kills. And now Oner is trying to chase this one out. Caps is in trouble. The heartbreak comes on through, and the resets are coming in. Can he find the next one? Yes, he can. It's now the Galester, and Broken Blade's in trouble. It's a triple kill for the LCK Spring MVP.
This crazy sequence was only possible due to Oner's insane split-second decision-making, despite having to play multiple different champions. Let's break it down. To kick things off, we have Faker being collapsed on as he tries to push in top lane. As Jankos goes in to set up the play, Faker buys time with Gold Card into Everfrost. Normally, Diana/Yasuo is an extremely annoying combo to outplay. Because Diana's ultimate comes out instantly, you can't react to it, guaranteeing the Yasuo follow-up, so you have to hard read when Diana will press it. Faker's sitting on stopwatch and would normally use it at this moment as Diana got into melee range. But there's some next level things going on. Faker knows that Jankos is smart. With the rest of T1 collapsing, you wouldn't want to commit Diana ult on just one person who is probably already dead. Knowing Jankos won't ult, Faker holds it for Caps' Tornado. But on the topic of reading players, Caps baits the stopwatch out with his E, pretending he was going for the knockup, and then he whiffs the timing. And this is the setup to fight as Oner makes his way in. A bit overconfident since Caps messed up, Faker and Zeus walk right into Jankos, who was rewarded for his patience. He flash ults, setting up a huge combo. Oner, desperate to try and save his team, W flashes in to stun Yasuo and also to try and finish off Diana. But unfortunately, due to stopwatch, Oner is forced to switch targets and opts to finish off Rakan first instead. He uses his ultimate's execute damage to finish Rakan off and disrupt Diana plus Yasuo, who are trying to clean up the fight. He takes over Rakan and his first good decision comes in. Normally, it's not bad to do Q into W as Rakan, as it comes out really fast anyway. But Oner ditches the Q to cast W immediately, which barely lets him clip Jankos before he ran out of range. Up next is an incredibly well-placed ultimate. The angle here is going to matter. If you cast your ult in the middle of them, you might pincer yourself, which is not ideal. If you cast it to the right, you'd be giving them potential brush control. So Oner pinpoint casts his ultimate so Caps would still be inside, but putting him as close to the brush as possible. Caps manages to slide away at the last second, but Oner still takes down Jankos instantly. Oner uses his W to stun Caps and possesses Diana. This is the era of lethal tempo Yasuo, so Oner walks back to Q so Caps can't DPS him down. Then he E's in, and keep in mind Diana has the tiniest of lockouts after she gets her E reset. During that little downtime, Oner moves back to prevent Caps from autoing and to barely avoid Kallista's Q. Then he can go back in for the kill. Unfortunately, the minions troll him a bit here, making it hard to pick up the soul, but they're about to pay him back. Okay, from what we see, Viego players tend to panic a bit when they pick up Yasuo. There's a simple but very important thing to know, especially because Yasuo is so popular, so listen up. A common mistake you'll see is that they'll either target and then press win wall. Do you see how the wall is so far away from Yasuo? This will give your opponent a ton of counterplay. This is a simple fix, but you actually press W, then E at the same time to dash to the target. This will spawn the wind wall on top of you as you dash. When you're inside the wall like this, there's nothing a ranged champion can do. Oner is clearly aware of this. He WEs through the minions, and then Kalista can never deal damage again. So she tries to flash away, but he E's back through the wave, baits Broken Blade's dash, and finishes off Kalista with his ult reset. From there, he kites Ornn around and finally forces him to flash away, resulting in a one fight for T1 in a fight they had no business winning. This was an amazing play. Gumayusi and Keria got killed in the jungle, Faker was caught out, but Oner decided he was going to win this fight, and that's exactly what he did with an extremely well-played Viego. And if you want to do these types of cleanups yourself, then you need to understand how Viego's damage works, which brings us to our special skill cap tip. Many players already know that Viego's Q and W apply a mark. If you auto-attack a target, it will consume that mark for extra damage. This is actually a significant part of Viego's damage, but in teamfights there's so much going on, and you're getting so many resets that it's a bit hard to just sit there trying to maximize your DPS. So understanding all the ways you can utilize this passive is important. First things first, you should know your ult applies on-hit effects to its main target. This damage prioritizes the lowest health target you hit. Basically, you can consume your mark with your ult, so combos like QR or WR are really important for Viego to burst fast. But what a lot of players actually don't know is that while possessing a champion, Viego's mark passive is still active. Any damaging ability will apply the mark, which you can proc with your auto attack. So, for example, if you took over an Annie, you could Q, auto, W, and then use your ultimate reset to proc the second mark. This maximizes your damage as quickly as possible when possessing another champion. Making decisions around your passive damage is what will help you pop off on Viego, and we saw some examples here. When he took over Rakan, Oner comboed with W into R, which is how he destroyed Jankos' health bar instantly. But at the same time, you shouldn't tunnel vision on proccing your marks too much. For example, after comboing Yasuo, he could auto, but then he would have tanked Kalista Q. So Oner opted to avoid that instead and just went for one passive proc with his ult at the end. Now, as we just saw, once you get rolling on Viego in a teamfight, it just doesn't stop. The kills keep coming and coming. And that brings us to the second most important skill you can learn as Viego, securing the first kill. If you can't get that first kill, your champion feels so weak to play. Not being able to get that first reset means you're playing a fairly squishy champion who can't really go in and do much of anything. You just feel so useless. But once you do get just one reset, everything comes together and no one can stop you. And that brings us to one of the best junglers from the LPL, Wei, on his old team RNG versus T1 in the grand finals of that same MSI. His Game 3 Viego performance helped lead RNG to an MSI win, and it's off this crucial Viego fundamental. You're about to see just how much of an emphasis a top Viego player puts on securing that first kill. RNG is looking to set up and fight around the Rift Herald, and T1 wants to contest. Wei is there first, and there's something incredibly important he paid attention to. RNG has cleared vision in the river prior to T1 coming in. Lissandra and Gwen were both preparing for the fight as well. Then, while Wei is playing in the river area, he doesn't spot any vision being placed by the T1 members. T1 is solely relying on the vision their own champions are giving. Notice how aggressively he plays here, taking a risk in a 1v2 situation. This is all to push T1 just a little further back so Lissandra and Braum can come in outside of their vision radius. You know how you can sometimes tell when someone is warded even if you can't see the ward? Their model just stops moving for a split second and it's very obvious they just put vision down. Look at this. Wei plays this pretty convincingly that he's just spacing around, and he sneaks this control ward in the pit. This is the one area T1 might have had vision in, and he really wants to shroud Lissandra clawing in there. Now look at how passively he's playing. He's leaving Bin all on his own up front, baiting T1 into thinking that they're in a better position, so they walk forward. And then Lissandra comes out of nowhere, flash stunning Wukong. Wei hides his W cast with his camouflage and immediately flash Ws to follow up. Unfortunately, Keria is either insane at the game or lucky enough to block it, but Wei still gets a ton of burst with a QR combo to instantly kill Oner. And the first kill has been secured. From here, Nautilus has a passive mark still on him, and he's lower HP, so Wei looks to focus him down next. After possessing, Wei finishes the fight off with a perfect hook. He Qs at this angle rather than trying to hard read Gumayusi. This way, if he misses, he'll still drag himself right next to Aphelios and be able to finish him off with his ultimate anyway. Just like that, RNG won a 4v5 while Ezreal just sat bot lane the entire time, and it was all off Wei's impressive understanding of setting up his Viego win condition. Having insane champion knowledge is obviously an amazing tool to have as Viego, but what can often be even more important is that initial setup in the first place. Prioritizing that first kill above everything else is one of Wei's specialties as Viego, and is the major reason why RNG went on to dominate this game and then win the series. Viego is clearly an insane carry champion, but he does come with the downside that many other melee carries have. Viego is a champion like Master Yi and Tryndamere, who can go crazy if he stays alive and gets resets, but if you go in at the wrong moment, you can get blown up instantly. Which brings us to our third and final key skill any Viego player needs to thrive: min-maxing your defensives. Viego doesn't have any big defining skills that are able to keep him alive in fights. You actually have to play off a combination of a bunch of small to decent defensive tools: your long auto range, spacing with Q, your camouflage to engage at the right time, your ult to knock back, and a couple of invulnerability frames when possessing. On their own, none of these are enough to keep a melee carry alive, but when used together, you can become an unkillable machine. And no replay highlights this better than Inspired's iconic pentakill versus Misfits to close out an extremely close 5-game series.
For one, the Meganar comes back as a stopwatch comes out. Here it's going low, less than 1,000. He's taken out. Inspired needs the resets to break the hearts of all Misfits fans, but Kobe stays alive. The shield bow keeps him out. Finally goes down. Inspired's got the reset. It's a 2v1. Looking for another. Razork's in so much trouble. Inspired with the blade of the Ruined King. Viego shuts down Misfits.
To kick things off, Rogue is looking to push into Misfits' base with their Baron buff. As they do, a ridiculous arrow lands on Syndra, kicking off the fight. Nautilus follows that up with his ultimate, and Rogue is immediately on the back foot. Inspired is unable to go in on his own while his team is retreating, so he goes into defensive mode. He looks for a blind stun on the Akali, threatening the backline, and is mostly looking to peel. Once Akali comes out of Zhonya's, they quickly take her down, and here's where Reset City begins. Gnar is clearly about to jump into him and Hans Sama. Since the engage is so obvious and clearly coming, Inspired uses the invulnerability frames of his possession and dodges the engage. Something to know about Akali is that if you want to maximize your burst in melee range, you would do something like Q, E, E2 into auto Q. But after missing his Gnar ult, pay attention to how Rogue is clumped up. Inspired sees the very predictable W coming and foregoes that initial Q to instantly E away from danger. Now, he E's back in and immediately bursts Gnar down, finishing him off with his ultimate. He possesses Gnar, and here's where Inspired shows his great team fighting awareness. Many Viego players get way too hype on their resets here and hop in to try and pop off. Remember, if you ult in as Viego, you are out of defensive options. Viego has literally nothing to peel himself if he R's into someone and doesn't get a reset. Your range, camouflage, and R knockback are useless if you surround yourself with enemies. Gnar is a weak and slow DPSing champion that doesn't give big immediate value, so Inspired actually E's backwards to play with Gwen and the Baron minions. Unfortunately, Odoamne thought the opposite. In his mind, he should just go in and act as bait for Viego to pop off, so he keeps walking forward and dies. This small mistake actually turned out to be exactly what Inspired needed. While Ashe finished Gwen off, he got some of that gnarly DPS on her as a result. A key tip when you take over a ranged champion is to sometimes wait for an enemy melee to reach you before ulting in. So, for example, he lets Shin walk in, and then he ults Ashe to build distance. This forces the melees to have to walk back to help their carry. While super minor, this may have been the difference maker here, as he barely kills Ashe and possesses her. Ashe is very squishy though, and there's a small delay between possessions where you can't immediately R. So he W's to slow and builds as much distance as he can while his ult comes back up. Then he goes back in and angles W perfectly so that it hits Jhin and builds as much distance as possible between him and Nautilus. From there, he combines Viego's absurd 200 auto range plus his E's movement speed to beautifully space out Jhin, and the rest is history. He finishes Nautilus at the end, securing a well-earned pentakill. With the confidence from that play, Inspired led his team to victory to close out an extremely close series. And with that amazing pentakill, we're going to wrap this one up. Let's hope we get to see some more Viego pop-offs at the 2024 World Championship. See you there, and thanks for watching.